Hi, everyone. I'm Dale from Wormux Publishing, and I want to show you how fast and easy it is to produce Braille versions of your content. Now, I'm recording this specifically for the tabletop role-playing game industry and community, but this really works with any kind of book, any kind of print publication, all right? So, first of all, uh, we're talking about making digital Braille. All right, what is digital Braille? Digital Braille it's a simple file. It's actually a text file that is encoded in such a way that a dynamic Braille reader will be able to read it. And what is a dynamic Braille reader? You think about like a Kindle, especially like an old school e-ink kind of Kindle. You take it, it displays the words across the screen. All right. Now imagine that you are blind or have low vision, and that doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. Now, there are different audio adaptations of a lot of things, but if you're trying to look something up specifically, trying to scroll through audio can take a really long time. It's not very convenient. And in fact, if in the role-playing game space, imagine if you have a few monster stat blocks that you're trying to keep track of, and you need to go and listen to half the stat block before you get to a specific ability, instead of being able to just skim down the page. All right, Braille makes it possible to skim around and find things very quickly, a lot faster than audio, if audio is even available. And so we'd really like to see more accessibility in the industry and just throughout the publication industry globally to make Braille more available. And there is a great free tool that you can use to literally do this in minutes. It's so simple. Now, the other thing with digital Braille is also for people that have a Brailler or a Braille, also a Braille embosser. It's like a printer, except instead of spitting ink onto a page or using toner or something like that, it embosses pages. It takes usually kind of like a cardstock style paper, and it puts little dots in that embossed dots in the page, so that it can be printed out that way. You can people can take it with them and be able to have a Braille copy of whatever they're using. We're using a software to do this called BrailleBlaster, and it is free, and it will allow you to create these kinds of files extremely quickly. All right, so the first thing you do is you go to brailleblaster.org. You can see it there on the screen, and we'll put a link in the show note to make it really easy for you. And then that has all kinds of information about what the software is, documentation, and everything like that. And it is absolutely free. And then you just click on download, and you can see it's available for Windows, Mac, Linux, and so you pick which one you want, download it. All right, so once you have that software installed, then you can go ahead and launch it. And the first time you download it, whatever system you're using, you may need to do some sort of permission stuff to allow for it. All right, but once you have it, here's your interface. And then just hit open and choose your file. So I've got this adventure that we created last year for congenital heart awareness, and choose that Word file. Here it opens it right up. Now you can do some real basic. You notice that we already have headings, body text, different levels of headings. All right, but well, here this was a title, and so that didn't translate too well across, and so we're just going to choose up here heading 1 and make that heading. We'll make this a heading 2 since it's a subheading. All right, and you see we have all our Braille right here that's there, and we've checked this with we have a team of Braille users that check this, and we're finding that if you just use the BrailleBlaster settings, just keep them as the defaults, you should be good to go. And so you can literally just open the app and you can just start using it instantly. All right, you see everything's here, and then, okay, so now we get down here to our tables. All right, so if you take a look at this is an ugly table. All right, and I guarantee you this is not going to be fun or easy for anyone to use like this. All right. This right here is generally about the only actual work that you have to do to clean up this file. And I'll show you how easy it is. All right. So you just find your table. Okay. And then you go up here to your table editor. And then you just choose auto and save. And you notice that it changes the kind of table into more a list table that is easier to read. Okay. And do the same thing. And what I like to do to make sure that I find them all, you can just choose Command F for find. And it's also right here. And just move this out of the way. And then put like 3 hyphens. And that will help you find your tables. You just hit find and there's the next table. All right. So table editor, auto, save. All right. And so we just go through and we do that with each table. You take a look. This is the one-shot adventure. All right. You notice how quickly it opened it and how quickly these conversions are going. And just, it looks great after it's cleaned up. Right. That's it. Right. We just edited an entire adventure that is all ready to go. Now, once you're done with that, there are other things that you can do to make it more accessible, to make it easier to use, all right, and to help people enjoy it more. And probably the biggest thing is that you notice that this adventure does not have any images. All right. Now, generally, with digital Braille, you're not going to have images. We will do future tutorials on how to do embossed images. This is where we're talking about actually printing things out as opposed to using it digitally. So meanwhile, to make it very accessible, what you want to do is go back into your document where you have any images, see what images are there, and just insert into that portion of the adventure a description of the picture, and put it where it makes sense. Add that as a description, not necessarily where the picture is, but if you have a character and you need a description of what they look like, include that description where it belongs instead of just relying on that. If you have maps, just make sure and just imagine that you're playing theater of the mind and you need to describe the different rooms on a map. And just type it out and then include that in either a separate map section or else in the different room descriptions. And then you've got it covered as far as images go. Be as descriptive as you can without overkill, and that's really helpful. And then, so once you have it all converted, then, here's one other thing about BrailleBlaster. I found depending on the file that you're working with and stuff, once in a while, I found that it'll crash all of a sudden. So like anything, save early, save often. All right. And so when you save, it creates this BBZ file. All right, that you can edit in BrailleBlaster. And so we're just going to save that so we've got it. You'll also notice that when you are in another window, your save options disappear. You need to be in the main window when you save. What I like to do, when I did the monster section of the SRD, we had a lot of tables like that. And so I made a point of just going through, of just holding my finger on the save button on a Mac, it's Command S. And I would just, after each one, I just hit Command S before I went to the next table. It takes a second, and then that way, if there was a crash, I didn't lose anything. So I recommend actually saving as soon as you open it, and it does that initial conversion. All right, then after that, you want to save as BRF, which is formatted Braille, and then you're just gonna save that, and you're done. And that file is ready to go. Now, there are a few quirks in BrailleBlaster that you need to be aware of. All right. So watch what happens when here I have, this is the wizard character class section from the SRD. All right. So it goes to open it, and you notice this huge table here. There's no way that you're going to be able to confidently use that as is. And so this is definitely one that you are going to want to change, right? And it just makes it that much easier. Now, other ones, when you do this, it'll keep it as a simple table because it's perfectly fine with that. Now, you'll notice here that it actually didn't handle this the way it should. Here you have extra text here that should not be there. So we're going to undo. Another thing you'll notice when you're scrolling that it does add the page numbers. When you go down to the bottom, if you have a really long document, you may need to go down and then just arrow key down to the next page and watch your page numbers, because sometimes it will jump a little ways. So hopefully that'll be cleaned up in future versions of BrailleBlaster. It's not a big deal. You want to make sure that you don't miss a page. And like I showed you before, if you use the Command F right here with these lines and you just jump from those, that'll help to make sure that you don't miss any of that stuff. All right, so in this case, with our table, you find that it's not handling the end of it very well. All right, so let me show you a trick. It's what's happening here is that BrailleBlaster does not like tables that have, here we have what, 13, 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 9 levels. Yeah, 13 different columns. All right, it does not like that many columns. So let me show you a trick on how to take care of that. I'm just going to close this out for now. And we are going to take this file, the wizard, and we're going to open it in Word. All right, you select your table here. And we're going to choose Convert Table to Text and use paragraph marks. You hit it, and this is a little bit scary, right? Because you just have this big, long string of text, right? But watch what happens. We save this. And since we're in Word, instead of saving it as HTML, because Word handles HTML kind of strangely, then we are just going to save this as a docx file. All right, so now we're going to go into BrailleBlaster. We're going to open that file. It runs conversions. Boom, here we go. Now, look at this table, though. This is a mess. Now, remember, the first one, this is actually, we probably just want to make this bold. Right? We can only do 3 levels of headings in BrailleBlaster. And so you just, if you have more headings than that, you do heading, 3 beyond that, or choose some other kind of formatting if you need to. Oops. And so then what we're going to do is, now remember, this had 13 columns. And if you can't remember, you can just look down here and you go, okay, yep, add those up, 13 columns. All right, and we're going to scroll down to the bottom of the table. Select, okay, we've got all our body text. Now we're going to go up to Tools and choose Convert Text to Table. This is just like in Word, right? And so remember, we have 13 columns. And so type in 13, okay. And here you can see the table, right? With something like a class table, it's real easy to notice features, and you look under it and yep, those are features. Those are wizard features. All right, this is already set to auto for you, and you can hit save, and boom, it is all formatted real nicely for you, all ready to go, and handles the columns just fine. All right, and so that is the trick with multi-column tables. Save it and export it, and you're good to go. Now we're going to have more tutorials coming up with other tips and tricks to improve on this. I'm going to be working with our Braille team to make sure that we can find other ways to improve accessibility. All right. But for now, this is so simple that you can take your documents, probably good to go. But here's the thing, it's worth it. All right. We want everyone to be able to play role-playing games. We want to just make this available to as many people as possible, right? And not only that, it also has the advantage, about 1% of the population are blind or have low enough vision that they need some sort of enhancement to be able to access printed material. And only about 10% of blind people are Braille readers, because Braille is not widely available. And so it's this sort of chicken and egg thing that Braille's expensive, it's not widely available, so why learn Braille? And but because there's not as many Braille readers, then there's not as much demand, which keeps the prices up. All right, let's do something about that. Let's fix that. Let's make Braille widely available. All right, there are different government programs and things where you can be able to access Braille readers and that, because they're kind of expensive. And so we want people to be able to use these resources so they can benefit from them. And part of that is making a lot of them available. All right. So if you are watching this as a role-playing game developer, hey, let's just flood the entire hobby, the entire market with Braille versions so that that is readily available, so that teachers can use them. Imagine teachers teaching their students Braille using D&D and other role-playing games. Wouldn't that be awesome? And if you are an author or somebody else that is not in the role-playing game industry, everything here also applies to your work. And it's probably, frankly, easier because you might not have tables and some of the complex layouts that we deal with. You can do this so fast and make your products more available. You're opening up your work to another group of people that wouldn't normally have access to it. All right, so I invite you to subscribe to our channel so you can not only be able to catch interviews and shows with all kinds of interesting people in our industry, but we will also be posting more future videos on Braille conversion and other forms of accessibility so that you can make your products available to as many people as possible. So thanks so much for watching, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to leave comments where you can. Thanks.